Okay, let's go ahead and get started there, everybody. Welcome back to another Terraria coding mod session. I'm your host, Strangebird Jim, and today we are going to be getting started in, well, we're going to be continuing with our study session. Now, let's see. I don't know if I made a note of where I was kind of leaving off. Um, I have wall guide down, but I don't know. Okay, yeah, I haven't done wall guide yet, so. All right, well, that's where we left off, so we're going to continue on with that. Um, let's see, I'm going to disable all these mods here. Don't really need those in that one. Let me go ahead and enable the um, mods that I've been kind of using a bit on Terraria. There we go. Just in case, because I have this available, for and just in case anybody, if I want to like show off something that I've done, then we can kind of look at it. But going back to our, easy guides here, we have, just these two left, and then it goes on to the intermediates. So, going into the wall guide again, I don't think we're going to be seeing too much needed here, but um, um, so walls are fairly straightforward, and creating a mod wall is mostly an exercise in following the existing patterns. Like tiles, walls are comprised of two parts: the mod item that places the wall and the mod wall itself. Again, this is all kind of associated with, you know, building you know, um, a a wall in game, that um, you know, but it's not what I'm gonna be needing to use at all. So, I look at this and go, okay, well, you know, while this might be fantastic for anybody that, wants to kind of build something brand new, um, like a new, um, like structure or something like that, right? Um, this won't necessarily work very well um, um, for my purposes of trying to create um, a user interface. So to be honest, a lot of this is pretty much not needed for me. I'm not gonna need to worry about any of this. I'm not needing to build any kind of walls. So because again, these are like in-game walls that you can potentially like set up torches on or something like that, right? But again, it's not something that I'm in need of doing. You know, I don't need to worry about doing anything along those lines. So, um, the user interface won't utilize any of this particular logic. So it's not something that I'm in need of at this point. So we're just going to go ahead and skip it then. Conditions, again, um, probably not going to be using this one either because once again it's having to do with NPC shops, recipes, NPC loot, and so on and so forth. Um, so, you know, after defeating the King Slime, blah, 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 right? Certain conditions to where parts of your code will work and won't work. Well, for the tech tree that I want to make, I want it to be available all the time. So there's really no condition to it. It's much along the lines of having the guide. As soon as you enter the game, the guide is right there. You can talk with them. You can see, what you can make with all the materials that you get. And the tech tree should also be there, right there, waiting for anybody that wants to use it, right? So, um, so that's all. Um, so having conditions aren't necessary for me. I don't really need to worry about, creating any kind of conditions or anything like that. Um, so we don't need to worry about it. Um, so yeah, okay. We don't really need to worry about anything here. So I'm just going to, yeah, obviously, this will be good for anybody that wants to create, any kind of like conditions, like after defeating the King Slime or whatever. But for my purposes, not necessary. Don't need to worry about it. So, we're now on to the intermediate guides. So, um, so let's look at what the prerequisites are for this. Before consulting any of the intermediate level guides, please read below so you are prepared for intermediate level concepts. Please also make sure that you have gone through the basic prerequisites and corresponding basic level tutorials related to things you are interested in, which I've already done. So, um, yeah, we already have intelligence and installation and stuff like that, so we don't really need to worry about that. Usage, no worries. Advanced, no worries. Um, Inheritance, no problem. Hooks, okay. Documentation, sure. Although, um, we found instances of where certain methods, certain classes aren't necessarily showing up on the IDE, so it's like, it's a bit concerning there, um, but not much I can really do about it right at this moment in time. I would have to like look up um, further details about it at a later time. Um, but to be honest, a lot of this is, pretty much standard. I don't see. This is just basically, restating a lot of the things that we've already kind of gone over and stuff like that. So we don't really need to worry too much about this. What I'm referring to, by the way, in terms of things that I'm not quite sure what they're really referring to, is when we came on down here, and when we got to this insert, um, they referenced when you look at the insert on the class list here, um, they were talking about how this is meant to be um, a draw function, but they never specified like all the different kinds of draw functions that I could utilize. Or maybe it was the delegate. Well, it was, the delegate was part of the legacy game interface layer issue kind of thing. This was kind of saying like, hey, this is part of a draw function class, but it never really talked more about it. So, So I'll need to kind of look that up a little bit more later. It again, it might be something that, you know, I will find in the intermediate and advanced guides. We'll see. Like, you know, there's this advanced custom UI guide, right? So it might go over those details a little bit more. Maybe. Not sure. We'll have to kind of see. We'll have to see, you know, whether or not there's going to be more to it or not. So, um, but yeah, okay. So we got intermediate Git and mod management guide next. Um, it is important to note that you will be making your source code public and your mod open source with this guide. If you do not wish to do so, you probably shouldn't follow along with this guide. Just read it. However, this guide will explain how Git works and useful to you. Okay, so you know, this is, you know, um, like obviously lots of information about how to go about, you know, handling Git and GitHub and, you know, committing your work and you know, having it open source and blah blah blah. We're not there yet. Okay. Um, I don't want to. I want to make sure that my code. Um, I want to be able to like establish, you know, the basics first with the code before I start doing any kind of GitHub integration, you know. So I'll you know, establish it later, but for right now, I don't want to do it like right now, because I'm afraid that I'm gonna like create the GitHub and just kind of fill the GitHub with lots of trash, and I don't necessarily want to go about doing that. So, um, you know, like for example, um, you know, if we look at the, you know, the virtual code of you know, the tutorial store that was given to us to work on, to build and stuff like that, you know, I don't want these files going into that GitHub account. Get what I'm saying? I'd rather establish a new project altogether, in order to build the tech tree proper. You know, have the proper name for it, have the right kind of um, files associated with it, have the right kind of you know, tools built in, so on and so forth. Otherwise, you know, I'm gonna have like this tutorial sword put into the GitHub, and I don't really want that. That's has no basis whatsoever to to what I need to do, to what I want to do. So um, now, obviously, there are ways to make sure that, you know, I'm only committing, you know, what I want to commit. But for right now, um, you know, I don't necessarily want to worry about having to kind of follow up all these steps when I have no code to show for it whatsoever right at this point in time. So, better for me to establish the code, establish the project first before I get into building my GitHub connection and all that. So okay, so just letting you folks know, it will eventually happen that I will make it, you know, open source and public and so on and so forth. People can then use it afterwards and, you know, fix it up, clean it up, um, add more to it if they want to, blah blah blah, right? But um, for right now, I'm gonna keep it kind of closed for the time being till I can get um, till I feel like it's worthwhile enough to be placed onto the GitHub for right now. Um, but you know, we're gonna wait on that for now. So okay, so we got intermediate modding with C# guides. C Sharp 6 guide. Okay. What is C Sharp 6? Okay. C Sharp 6 stands for version 6 of the C Sharp language. Ah, okay. By default, you'll be compiling your mod using C Sharp version 4. Interesting. Okay. However, it is possible to compile your mod using C Sharp version 6. In this guide, we will go over how to compile using version 6 and which benefits it may include. Um, to enable version 6 compile, set language version 6 in your build.txt file. Okay, why should I use C Sharp 6? In general, it's usually best to use the latest version of something. Yeah, typically. Our language version is not an exception. Version 6 comes with many improvements over the old version. It is advised to check the official Microsoft article covering 6 notes to see all the goodies. In general, 6 has some neat quality of life improvements we will cover below. Here is a full list of what 6 included. So, okay, so compiling with 7 is possible with releases after version 10.1.5. To learn more about it, we got this specific page. Most notable code improvements with 6 for modders. Expression bodied function members can be shortened to blah. String interpolation can be shortened to blah. Long list of issues when compiling with 6. So lots of potential issues, and I guess more on this page as well. So, so you know, we shall see about that. Same with number 7 here. Roseland compiler, version 0.11, 7 is the default. Most useful features, nested functions, inline out variables, pattern matching, tuple types and literals. Not a list of errors that people have kind of seen with 6. They're not really shown in 7, huh? Okay. Now it begs the question, what version is C Sharp at now? Let's see. Let me double check that. C Sharp version. Okay, C Sharp is already all the way up to version 12. So they've had 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 since then. And this was edited back in 2022. I mean, by that point in time, version 10 was already out. Okay, so the most that I can think of is because the original Terraria was most likely built off of the previous versions of C Sharp, and the likelihood of um, they probably don't necessarily want to use um, the later versions because the later versions would most likely have like deprecated code that may actually break Terraria itself, potentially. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert at C Sharp. I'm not an expert at Terraria. So the most that I can say is that um, you know they're not talking about any of the later versions beyond this, right? We're not seeing 8, we're not seeing 9, we're not seeing 10, we're not seeing 11, we're not seeing 12 anywhere in the rest of these guides. Um, so the most that I can say is they probably got it up to version 7. But after that, they probably were having some like they might have like tried to expand it onto um 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, or 8, and probably got hit with a lot of errors and um, deprecated um, functions and classes and so on and so forth. And they were like going, yeah, okay, we're just going to have to keep this to the lower version. Potentially. I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert, so I don't really know 100% if that's true or not. But it makes the most sense to me at this time. You know, I'm not one that has like gone in depth into the Terraria or Terraria modding or anything like that, so I don't know. I don't have that information. So if you're coming to me and you're going, well, Jim, why don't you know? It's like, I'm brand new to this. You're gonna have to cut me some slack here. you know. Um. So. So yeah. Now it's a little unfortunate in that here I was hoping that hey the code that I'm going to be learning is going to be brand new and I'm going to be learning some really good C sharp habits and so on and so forth with this and something that I can use to take to uh, live experience and stuff like that. But now I'm like, ew, this is a pretty old version. But I mean, just a little bit helps, you know. Um, but obviously, most jobs would probably be looking saying, okay, what C sharp have you learned up to? And I'm saying, and if I say confidently, yeah, I've learned up to 7, then they're like, we're at 12 now. Then I'd be like going, ooh, that kind of thing. But hey, I'm entry level anyway, so I'm not gonna say like, hey, I'm gonna be knowing everything, and I'm not gonna be knowing everything about C sharp, but um, we'll continue working on what we can do. What we'll keep on working on with what we can work on. Um, so um, you know, the I mean the this bit of information is okay. But a lot of it might be things that I might not necessarily need to worry too much about as well. Um, so um, so we'll see. Um, I might need to kind of go back to those and study them a little bit more to understand everything that they're kind of talking about a little bit. But before you continue this guide, you should read our basic netcode guide first. I've already done that. In general, you want to make your packets small so they can send across clients quickly and do not cause any problems in the network. Big packets or many packets sent will cause the network to clog up and can cause lag and problems while playing the game. If mod performance is bad during multiplayer, this can be why. If mod is actually buggy during multiplayer, it is often because they do not send packets at all and clients aren't synchronized. Well, again, I'm not needing, unless I make this to where the information that they find or they can build or something like that can be transferred between players, then yes, I will be kind of needing to worry about netcode a bit, um, but for right now, I won't necessarily need to worry too much about that right at this time because initially my focus is more about making sure that the client's information is the only one that's going to get applied to. Okay. If they want to have more of a sync up with other, in the multiplayer, then I'll have to see how to go about doing that. Um, but uh, but yeah. Um, and even then, I don't know how I'm going to be able to kind of show that either. You know, you have to understand that um, the idea of trying to create some form of tech tree, I'm going to have to be able to kind of store that information so that, so the next time they reload the game back in, that information is still present, still visible. You see what I'm saying? Um, and if this is something that has to be quite dynamic, in that I'm gonna need to make sure that um, um, if someone loads up this particular mod in with another mod that has like different weapons and different materials and so on and so forth, the my idea is that it would be great if I can get it to a point where it can still see those materials and still kind of generate um, a um, can still kind of generate a tech tree from those new materials. How? I don't know. Again, I'm going to be coming at this with kind of very little experience, and I'm going to be. It feels like I'm going to be tackling quite a bit on here to try to get it to a point where um, um, it will be, you know, not only useful for the player, but, if I do make it, multiplayer sending it across packets, then I'm going to need to be able to kind of store that information that I generate to be able to like send it across, to another player. And what happens when we get to a point where um, you know, the uh, what happens when we get to a point where we're late game and they've pretty much researched everything. Like everything on the tech tree has been basically researched. They found all the recipes and stuff like that. They built it all. That has the potential of being a pretty large file overall, you know, of um, of a kind of connection and allowing for um, possible connections to other builds and so on and so forth, right? Um, so that's why it's like, okay, well, um, this is going to be kind of interesting to you know, trying to make sure that everybody can kind of see it and reuse it. Like if they close down the application, it'd be nice if when they reopen it back up again, the tech tree remains. So the tech tree has to basically save the information that they've already kind of gathered somewhere. Whether it's whether it's a text file, whether it's like maybe a temporary database. I'm not quite sure um how they you know um you know the the building of the guides material list seems to me like it's it's just a list. Like they are literally getting um um all the materials and stuff like that, and they're putting it into the list to be stored so that the guide can kind of reference in at another time, right? Um, like they don't necessarily have like a database or anything along those lines, unless they do. Again, I don't know. I don't know whether or not they have a, you know, kind of like their own database structure being created and used um, in Terraria. Like, how are they storing, um, you know, um, an example? How are they storing the world? You know, let me kind of show you what I mean. So so we go to our single player right here, right? And hey, we got this tester mod that I made as a way to kind of test out the mods that I made, right? And you can see like HP and MP and stuff like that, and then the time or how much playtime has been kind of done with it, and it's like okay, well, where exactly are they storing this again? I mean, they have it saved, you know, on the cloud. Is this a is this information here being saved in like you know, a text file? You know, like if I was to go to Terraria and see, where, these where they're storing these characters, what am I gonna find, right? Um, Matter of fact, I'm kind of curious about that. So let me go to my um, tModLoader and let me browse local files and see what we got here. Um, okay, so obviously we have the tModLoader like batch file and so on and so forth. Application that it kind of runs alongside of um, um, Terraria. Um, but what I'm kind of curious about right now is um, where are they storing the characters? Is it in the tModLoader or is it in Terraria itself? I'm assuming in Terraria itself because tModLoader feels like, well, it's a mod, so it's not gonna have the characters built into it. One would imagine that the tModLoader is still using um, the character. There's probably like a character folder within Terraria itself that it still references, right? So, um, yeah, I don't really see much there. Let me look at the local files for Terraria. So, okay, content. Don't really see anything in the content folder, or at least not that much. Fonts, okay, images. Town NPCs and their images, apparently. And it appears to have a lot of um, it has a lot of like characters in here. I do believe that it has characters that um, I don't know. I don't know if it has all the um, yeah, this seems that like it has all the standard NPC vanilla um, images. So, but I don't know exactly what's in those files. It's the XNB file. Not quite sure what XNB is all about. Hold on, let me look that up. Let me make sure. Um, let's see. What are XNB files? This one in particular is coming from Stardew Valley, so um, game stores data, maps, textures in a compressed format with the XNB file extension inside its content folder. For example, Abigail's portrait shown during dialogue is from content portraits Abigail.xnb. Unpacking that file gives you Abigail.png like this. Okay. And XNB files an XNA Game Studio binary file. It's used by Microsoft XNA Game Studio, extracting images from one with XNB extract or convert to audio with XNB to WAV. Aha. Okay. Um, not that familiar with the Microsoft XNA Game Studio. Kind of curious about that. Microsoft XNA Game Studio. Um, Microsoft XNA Game Studio 4.0 makes it easier than ever to create great video games for Windows-based PCs, Xbox 360 consoles, and Windows Phone. Interesting. Okay. Microsoft XNA Game Studio is a discontinued integrated development environment IDE for building video games on the Microsoft XNA platform. Interesting. Okay. I wonder what the if they, what the next version is, or what the um, next IDE. Um, let's see, replacement. Okay. Hmm. Really seen much in terms of like something from Microsoft. Um, Although the Game Studio 4.0 is from 2021 and it's been discontinued. Um, let's see. NXA Game Studio 4.0 was announced and initially released as a community technical preview, Game Developers Conference (GDC). That's standard. Back in 2010. And Refresh was released on 2011. But no other studios after that. They didn't do like a 5.0 or anything along those lines after that. So did they just kind of give up on it altogether afterwards? Or they, um, what Microsoft use after XNA. Hmm. Let's see. Doesn't seem like Microsoft really did anything after XNA. Seems like. Um, Microsoft open source game development tools. Game development kits. Interesting. But I mean, game development kit's been around for a while. It's just maybe they put like all their tools into it for the most part. And just kind of said, hey, this is now like the full version of game development kit. I don't know. Who can say? I'm kind of got off track. Sorry about that. Um, got a little sidetracked there. Okay, um, so it looks like a lot of the information in Terraria is kind of stored in an XNB file for the most part. Um, now, um, now right now I'm kind of curious as to where it is storing, um, like the information that, I'm creating, um, from, um, where is it storing, my modding um, files and all that kind of thing. You know, where is it storing the world files? Because right now, I'm not really seeing like the world names, for example, right at this moment in time. So, not quite sure where they are holding on to those right at this point. So, hmm, interesting. Okay, I found it. It's in the documents folder, and it's put under tModLoader worlds and backups. Now, I don't know. Um, like if I just ran Terraria by itself without the tModLoader, I'm assuming that it would probably create its own folder for itself for the vanilla. Um, you know, and it will have its own worlds and backups, and it will show like these zip files and stuff like that. Now, I'm kind of curious as to what's kind of inside them. And this particular file has 4 megabytes, with a WLD file and a 1 kilobyte for a TWLD file in them. Not quite sure exactly what's all contained within them, but um, let's see. Let's look at like the calamity one here, and I can see that the WLD file is 4 megabytes again, and the TWLD is 378 kilobytes. So I'm still kind of curious as to, what exactly are they storing in the worlds, and how, what kind of information are they storing, you know, um, how are they storing said information? You know, what exactly are they storing there? Because um, the information that they're storing right at this moment in time is very small, and it's kind of, well, it's compressed, so the file sizes aren't really that large, for megabytes, for example, for the, most recent version of the Apocalypse, which, granted, we're still, fairly, we're still in mid game for that particular file anyway. Um, but I mean, there's still a lot of information there that we're building houses, we're building pylons. We are, um, developing our characters more. We're storing a lot of information, like all the, um, like everything that's in the storage mod, for example. It's like that all needs to be kept. So one would think that it is being kept within the world file, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure what they are holding on to. So, if the world file is holding on to all that information about, like, hey, our storage mod, for example, has, all these items in there, the specific types, the amounts of them all, then that's interesting that we're seeing only like 4 MB of data being stored, and I'm kind of curious as to how they went about doing that, right? Um, so, um, but um, because if I'm going to be making a text tree, then I'm going to need to kind of store, something kind of similar in a way. Um, and have it kind of built into, well, maybe not necessarily the world itself, but maybe the character. Hmm. I don't know. Um, I think that might it'll be kind of interesting. Um, okay, so they've also been kind of storing character files, and the Calamity versions that I have right at this moment in time are up in the 2 MB in size. My single player and the test mod versions are in the 100 to 200 kilobytes. So not very large at all on those. Um, which once again makes me wonder, um, what information is kind of stored inside these files a little bit. You know, um, we have PLR and TPLR, and then we have a map file and a tmap file. So that's interesting. Inside a folder for the particular character. Um, so our file. Hmm, okay. What about a map file? More generically, the map extension can be used to denote any file type that indicates relative offsets from a starting point. Map file types are used in this way, for example, when variables in software are expected to be mapped to a specific spot in memory. The closest thing that I can see based off a wiki. Um, let's see. As I understand it, the map files in the player folder holds the minimap data for a particular player in a particular world. Did you check with that character to make sure the world was actually like that, or just look at this at his minimap? Hmm. Map files minimap data of for the world of file name is the ID value of the corresponding world. For example, my world ID blank, so my file, my player div record is that. Mode is specifically controlled within the world file, and you have the right idea. The only way to hmm, um, the right idea that the only way to revert the hollow encryption would be to restore a backup, though doing this would cause anything stored in chests to be lost since they're also in the world file. Interesting. Which makes me wonder if the chests are kind of related to the world file, does that also mean that the storage um, from the storage mod is also kind of being tied into the map file? Hmm, interesting. I had to be able to save the information that I, generate from this particular tech tree, right? The question is, where would I store it? You know, does it go into a character file? Does it go into the world file? Would it go into the, um, you know, I'm not sure. Hmm. Okay, well, um, I think that's about as much as I can really do right at this moment in time. Um, Obviously, um, like I mentioned before, you know, uh, I'm not I'm not really planning on doing a multiplayer, being able to, transfer information across. But I mean, if I do handle that, then I would need to know um, how, I'm going to be handling that. You know, how will it store the information? How will I be able to send it across the internet? And obviously, I would need to, be able to do it in such a fashion where it's going to be super fast. Otherwise, we get a slowdown, right? So that's all. You know, I'm gonna need to figure out how to kind of go about doing that and um, how to store the information, how to send the information, so on and so forth. If if I want to work on this net code, if I want to get this network code to work with a multiplayer. Again, that's kind of that would be kind of a stretch goal in my opinion, but um, so um, hmm. Okay, at some point in time, I'm gonna need to figure out how to go about like saving the information in some fashion or another. And right now, I'm not necessarily seeing anything here. I mean, intermediate saving and loading guide, and it's like, okay, well, um, I don't really see any like advanced saving and loading guide, um, so I hope this saving and loading guide gives me enough information that I need to do in order to be able to, um, you know, store the information away properly without like totally ruining, tModLoader, for example, right? Um, but we're going to go ahead and stop it for now. We're going to move on to intermediate recipe guide tomorrow. Um, but obviously we don't necessarily need to do that now. We're going to go ahead and pause, um, our study session on this, and we're going to move on to Final Fantasy VII. So that's where we're going to go ahead and end it for tonight. I want to thank everybody that stopped on by and chatted with me. um, such as Kirito. Um, Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. But that's where we're going to go ahead and end today's session. Check out the description for multiple links down there. Discord, Patreon, Throne, and Team Robot. That's all down there if you want to check that out. A like and subscribe would be fantastic. Whether you're watching right now live or if you're watching this later on um, in the VOD playlist. But that's going to be it for tonight. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully I catch you next time. And until then, take care. Have a good night. Stay healthy. Stay safe. I'll catch strangers next time. Stop recording.